Okay. Hi, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. We are going to begin with a public hearing for proposed amendments to the 2025 operating budget and presentation of the 2026 operating budget. Mr. Nestico, would you like to get us started?
Yes, and JC is going to do the presentation, and she just went to get a few printed papers that didn't print, so that's okay. They were just going to be handouts, but we'll pull the slideshow up here, and we should be all set.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, briefly, I'm going to go over some budget amendments to the 2025 budget. We take these into consideration as we move into the 26 budgeting period. So this will reflect on the budget that I'll go over after the amendments, and if they're approved, it'll kind of fall in line. So a couple things popped up in 2025 in the capital reserve. We were issued a grant to help replace the Route 22 LED lights. So that is going to be something that we're amending for $374,850, and that's completely funded by grant money, so that will increase the capital reserve both on the expense side and the revenue side equally. Additionally, we also have the police NIBRS informant technology. That is also completely funded by grant, and that's for $37,595. Revenues will offset the expenses there as well. And that is it for the capital reserve. And on the general fund side, this was pretty much just cleaning up some departments. We had earmarked funds for a facilities caretaker to come in and clean. Well, that was a little bit delayed, so the contracted services for the cleaning continued on longer than expected. So we shifted some of the funds from the salaries that we had earmarked over to the contracted services to offset that. So it was just reallocating those expenses. Additionally, our Firemen's Relief Association is always an estimate every year. So we kind of trued up the revenues that we received and then allocated out to the 3 fire departments. That change was went from $140,000 to the actual amount received of $168,828, and all of those received funds were allocated out to the fire departments. Additionally, the workman's comp came in higher for the fire company under the SWIFT than we anticipated. Typically, we don't see a large increase with that, but we don't receive the premiums until December. And the premiums went up 21% from the prior year's expenses, which we don't normally see that spike. So we adjusted those expenses and utilized we were able to utilize salaries from the engineering because that was delayed until next year. So we reallocated those expenses over to be able to support the fire department insurance. Additionally, when we lost the K-9, we had a generous donation from the community to be able to keep the K-9 program going. So I amended the K-9 donation and the K-9 division to be able to support the expense and revenue. And that's pretty much everything. We also had legal fees. We were having a lot of extra legal fees due to the Sportsman's Club case. I don't really know too many details behind it, but I know that it did spike up our legal costs, so I amended that as well. And then our park utilities, when that storm came through in, I believe it was March, we had some damages over at the park trail. A fence got pushed over, and then we also had a tree fall on one of our hold on.
The dugout.
The dugout, thank you. I'm sorry, I got lost for words there. We had a tree fall on our dugout, so that spiked our costs in the parks, and we had insurance that actually offset that. So pretty much everything was offset between being able to reallocate expenses or having donations or insurances cover certain things. I really didn't have to pull any new revenue in to support any of these changes. And then we'll go over this again next week when it goes for actual approval and consideration. But for now, this was just kind of an introduction to them, so we can go through and I can talk about the budget and the amendments that took place for the comparisons.
I apologize to council. We'll get copies of the amendments placed in your mailbox. That way you have them for next week. I thought we would have that on the one slide here, but unfortunately, you're kind of running blind, so I do apologize for that. But there weren't many amendments, as J.C. described, that were substantially impacting the overall budget.
Yeah, the general fund had 63,000 worth of amendments, and the capital reserve with the grants coming in was 412,000. Okay. And then I can start going over the budget.
You want to do it from up here?
Yeah, do you,
Want to look at that one? And then I think you're just left and right.
what is this?
You can do that too, maybe.
I'll just push this guy. Okay.
You got it.
Thank you. So this is the proposed 26 operating budget for Murraysville. It's a balanced plan that maintains the same high level of municipal services that our residents expect, and it continues to invest in critical infrastructure and does so without any tax increases. Tonight, I'll highlight some key financial trends, fund allocations, and a few major capital priorities for the upcoming year. The 26 operating budget totals $17,026,370. This is a 4.1% decrease from the 25 amended budget of $17,755,084. This decrease reflects the timing of major capital projects, not reduction in services or staffing. The general fund increases from $10.81 million to $11.61 million, which is a 7.4% increase. And this is primarily from personnel costs, medical insurance, and the spike in the pension and MMO. The capital reserve fund decreases from $5.36 million to $3.9 million, which is a 27.3% decrease, as several one-time projects and equipment purchases concluded, including those amended items that we got grants for. All other funds combined total about $1.52 million, which is down about $58,000. And that reflects the emergency equipment. There is a planned truck purchase that was split into two payments, where the higher of the two was in 2025 for the chassis, and then the rest will be due upon arrival of the truck next year. So while the total budget appears lower, the 26 continues to strengthen operations, fund priority capital needs, and preserve strong fund balance reserves with consistent 2026 to 2030 capital improvement plans. The decrease is purely project timing. Our total real estate tax remains at 12.15 mils, a level that has been consistent for many years. While the overall rate hasn't changed, the distribution between the funds was adjusted for 26 to balance revenue sources with the expense needs. The total real estate tax that was shifted was 0.3, and the real estate transfer tax was shifted to the general fund from the capital reserve fund as a new revenue source for the general fund to support the increased expenses. To maintain stability, 0.3 mils was then reallocated from the general fund to the debt service and the capital reserve fund to provide continued support for the infrastructure, facility maintenance, and debt obligations. The distribution of the millage is as follows. The general fund will have 5, which is down from 5.3. The capital reserve fund will have 3.4, which is up from 3.2 in 2025. The emergency equipment fund will remain at 1.35 mils. The debt service fund will go from 1.2 mils to 1.3 mils to help support the spring interest payment. The library fund will remain at 1 mil, and the hydrant fund will remain at 0.1 mil. Each mill is valued at about $339,000, which is a 0.2 increase from 25. This reflects a modest growth in the municipality's assessed property values. These minor shifts ensure that the general fund and capital programs remain balanced without increasing overall millage rate. Revenues from 2026 remain steady and well-balanced across all major sources. Earned income tax is projected to grow at 1.6% from 2025, reflecting continued employment stability. Real estate tax totals $4.18 million across all funds, reflecting the safe 12.15 mill rate. And the collection shifts slightly between funds, as we just discussed in the last slide. Real estate transfer tax is shifting back to the general fund in 26 to help offset the rising operational and benefit costs. And interest earnings are expected to decline modestly as rates stabilize from the highs of the last few years. There's always a rate that the feds will have rate cuts. And the state shared revenue and grants remain steady and continue to support the pension aid and infrastructure funding. Altogether, revenues are projected to remain stable with modest growth, reflecting a balanced mix of tax and intergovernmental support without any extraordinary changes to revenue composition. The general fund totals $11.87 million, reflecting a 7.2% increase from last year. There are three new full-time positions included in the plan: a public works mechanic, a police officer, and an engineering technician. The pension MMO increased 33.2%, consistent with the updated 2025 actuarial evaluation. Salary adjustments follow the current CBAs. 3% COLA is estimated for non-union staff, 2.7% for non-uniform employees, and 3.5% to 4.5% for police. Operating costs are higher due to the increased MMO, workers' comp, and medical insurance. Personnel and benefit expenses account for approximately 76% of the general fund spending, which highlights this is fundamentally a service-based budget. Capital and projects total $3,896,000, slightly below last year's $4.1 million. Key investments include road infrastructure, overlay, and surface treatment programs, Route 22 maintenance for the medians, and the traffic signal upgrades. The storm sewer system, we have to stay in compliance with MS4 projects, fleet and equipment purchases for the police and public works, as well as the crash data recorder, and facility maintenance with roof repairs, parking lot repairs, and at the administration and community center buildings, in addition to a public works building expansions feasibility study. All projects align with the 2026 to 2030 capital improvement program that we went over in August. Dedicated millage ensures that specialized services remain properly funded. The three funds that we have dedicated millage for are the Emergency Equipment Fund, where 1.35 mills, which generate about $457,650, are dedicated, $457,650 are dedicated to fire truck purchases. The Library Fund gets 1 mills, generating $339,000, which is up about $1,000 from 2025, and the Hydrant Fund, which has 0.1 mil or $33,900, The hydrant fund continues to underperform, and expenses have exceeded revenues for over 10 years. The projection shows that the fund balance will be depleted by 2028 if unadjusted. We'll monitor that more closely during next year's financial planning. By department, key changes include administration, which is up about 6%, which reflects increased insurance premium and software upgrades. Engineering, which is up 17.8%, and this is due to the addition of a technician position and to extend project oversight. The police department is up 12.9%, or $529,000, due to staffing, wage projection, and new technology subscriptions. Public Works is up 0.7%, maintaining existing roads and facility programs. The Park and Recreation includes the Heritage Park playground renovations and pavilion improvements. And the Community Development Department is down 9.6% due to a reduction in training costs and employee benefit changes. Looking ahead, revenues are expected to grow at about 2.3% annually through 2030. The $0.3 million reallocation strengthens the long-term capital funding capacity without raising tax rates, and debt service and reserves remain within policy target, and the general fund balance remains at a 65.3% fund balance rate of compared to expenditures. The 5-year plan keeps us financially strong and allows us to adjust for priorities and the community as the community needs evolve. In summary, the 2026 operating budget holds the tax rate steady, funds nearly $3.9 million in capital improvements, and continues responsible investing in our workforce and infrastructure. Its sustainable strategic plan keeps Murrysville strong, financially disciplined, and service-focused, and well-positioned for years ahead. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy.
Council? All right.
If I may, just to touch on a few highlights. Obviously, we have a large group in the room, and I know the budget is obviously such a big item for the community. But some items that stand out, I think it's just important to address. When you hear numbers like the police department going up 12.9%, it's important to note that one, that includes an additional officer, something that we added one officer to the roster last year. Those are the first 2 increases in officers in probably over 2 decades. Again, recognizing the nature of the activity in the community, we want to make sure that we're adequately staffed. And so those 2 officers over the last 2 years are one reason why some of the costs went up in that department. Also, insurance costs went up roughly 24%. And healthcare costs, I think, were in the range of
I estimated them at 15%.
Around 15%. So again, just because those numbers are a little bit staggering, when you hear that, it's the first question is, well, what the heck's going on there? But again, because of the staffing increases, healthcare costs, insurance, those pretty much consume most of the increase in the department. The MMO is not calculated as part of that overall cost. It's separate, but the MMO has gone up substantially as well. So again, when you talk about the overall budget going up from year over last year, those are some of the big drivers of that. So I just kind of want to point that out to council. And certainly if there are any questions now or over the course of the next few weeks as you examine this and we come back to consider it, I just want to kind of make sure that you're aware of the more noteworthy items that are being addressed in this current budget. The other one item I will mention to council is something that we're going to get to later in the agenda with a discussion of a potential stormwater fee. This is something that, again, we want to explore. We had the consultant come in and conduct a study to see about the viability of that. Again, with costs increasing municipally wide, something like a stormwater fee would allow us to pull all of the current costs absorbed by the general fund relating to stormwater, pipes, inlets, infrastructure, things like that, out into a separate fund and allow us to then, of course, be able to manage the growth within not only the police and other departments, but also the rising costs overall. Again, the goal is, we don't want to see a tax increase if we don't have to. But at the end of the day, money does have to come from somewhere in order to provide adequate services. We want to be sure that we're doing that reliably and prudently. So again, that's something that we'll discuss later in the meeting as far as the actual stormwater fee itself and whether there's any desire to consider something like that. But again, that's one mechanism that I think we see internally that may allow flexibility moving forward to have all those stormwater requirements and all the work that Public Works performs now kind of come in under a different funding source. So again, there will be more to come on that without a doubt. But again, I just kind of present that to council as something that to look at going forward.
Okay.
J.C., the increase in the health insurance premiums, you mentioned that, but will you mention again what percentage?
I estimated it at 15%. We get estimates from our medical insurance that range what it could be, and they're saying that the majority, they said only 3% would probably come in under 10%. Otherwise, most of the health insurance premiums across the MBS would be in between a 10 to 20%. So I estimated about a 15 across.
The suggestion I'd make is that I can't tell you which insurer that the Medic One, they were, if you will, proud of the fact that their health insurance premiums increased only 9%.
Yeah, typically, ours are relatively low. We are part of a pooled trust, so MBS is it's a specific one that only certain people can be a part of. So you have to be municipal, you have to fall under certain categories, and it gives us leverage to be able to negotiate, and it keeps the levels really a lot lower than what other people see. So normally we don't see a big spike. Typically we estimate that it's going to be under 10%, and normally when we see it, it ranges sometimes only 5%. Last year it spiked up. Healthcare costs are going through the roof. I went to a meeting and they said that Wegovy was a huge driver. The amount that diabetes and a lot of other things, it's causing the cost of insurance to just skyrocket. And they also said that people who have certain coverage that like Highmark, that would be able to go to both Highmark and UPMC aren't leveraging just going to Highmark. So going to UPMC and Highmark, those contracts, it costs more for somebody with Highmark to go to UPMC. So there's a couple different factors that are causing the drive. And I know they had spoken that they're doing things that in the future that are going to help smooth those costs out over the long run. But they're just, I think, wowed at the amount of increases that everybody's seeing. I'm sure Medic One probably normally wouldn't even see the increase that they typically saw this year because it's just, it's kind of wild. I think I've read 2 or 3 different newspapers that all point to the same thing, that the costs are just skyrocketing across the board.
I think, that's obviously like a placeholder. So we're hoping that it comes in under that. We're thinking that maybe it will, but again, when they gave us guidance that it could be anywhere in that range, certainly want to be a little bit conservative with our estimation so that we don't get caught in the end. So hopefully it does come in less, somewhere where Medic One is, or maybe even lower, but I guess that remains to be seen.
I do always try to be conservative in my revenue estimates and very realistic in my expectations for the expenses. And I usually, having that approach helps give a little bit of balance and usually lands us on a more beneficial side versus being belly up. So.
J.C., I think you're doing a great job. I just have one little question about the amendment. Can we
Sure.
go back to the amendment? So just along that same line, the workers' comp, it's only $10,000. I say only $10,000 because the base is low, but the 21% increase for the workers' comp issued by SWIFT, are we required to go with SWIFT? Is that something or they're a limited number, or how does that work with them?
It's very limited. So when you're dealing with fire companies and emergency services, there's a lot of long-term issues that might come up, lung cancer, things along that line. So it gets very hard to insure people that are firefighters and deal with these extreme conditions. Yeah, so the market availability to find insurance, SWIFT is one of the only places that you can go for that insurance. And It just kind of is nature of the beast.
Thought so, but I just wanted to, thanks.
Yeah, if we had the option to shop around, I think we would try to do that, but every time we've tried to look and see if there's more, there's really not many people in the game of insuring fire.
Oh, and we definitely need to insure our fire departments. Thanks.
Absolutely.
JC, thank you for putting this all together. I just have one quick question as well. The
Sure.
earned income tax increase was projected at 1.6%.
Yes.
Is that similar to what it was last year, and how did that measure last year?
Well, so the trend that I've seen over the last couple years has been not quite stabilized. So we had a change in our earned income a few years ago. It was like maybe 3-4 years ago. And when that happened, we saw a spike. And since that spike has happened, we've kind of seen that spike now slow down. So the revenues kind of jumped up at like maybe a 15% increase just because of what we had prior, and then it went lower and lower, and now it's at the point where I'm seeing, anywhere from, I mean, mine is end of year estimate, and I really don't know what we're going to get in the last few months, but I'm thinking we're right in line, maybe at 2.5% increase. So I try to be a little bit conservative because you never really know if it's going to increase a lot. I try to keep, and that's always been the approach actually. Diane was my predecessor. She always estimated earned income to go up about what cost of living would. So you want to think anywhere from 1.5% to 2.5% to be a little bit conservative on that, because you also have to deal with collections. Are you going to get all the collections in, or are things going to be more towards the delinquent if things aren't coming in? So we typically see, well, like I said, it was spiked there for a few years, but it's come down in the level. Once it's leveled out, it would normally be about a 2% increase,
Okay.
give or take.
So that's a conservative. There 1.6 is conservative.
It is a little bit conservative, but since I saw the spike, I've seen it jump down half the rate almost every year. So
Okay.
I don't want to assume that it's going to be consistent. Yeah, it's a little bit conservative. I mean, if I look back in history, there's times where we haven't brought in the same amount as the prior year. So, yeah, yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, that's not the clearest answer, but it's all just, just guesstimation when you're looking at history. And when you don't have a huge history of a level that you're at right now, it's kind of hard to approach it. So we try to be conservative.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
JC, I have a two-part question. Congrats on the amendment, which relates to for the grants. How long did it take, from application to grant approval on those?
Well, I know the NIBURS grant for the police department started last year. So that was they'll put a grant in, and I want to say mid-year, and they normally early to mid-year, and they won't hear back until end of year or the beginning of the next year. So it's typically, I would say, a 9-month, does that sound about right? About a 9-month process between application and approval or denial. And then after that happens, it's dependent on if it's a reimbursement loan or if they're fully funding it. Right. So sometimes you expense it and you get reimbursed, or sometimes they'll give you the grant money and then you have to close out a grant and show that you actually had all those expenses and they're aligning, and then you have to true up after those go through.
I had another part to 2026, but I think you answered it within 2025, the approval process on the grant, so thanks.
Welcome.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns from council? Okay, hearing none. Is there any public comment relating to the budget only right now? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Jamie and Carl. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. We will close that public hearing, and we'll go straight into the public hearing, and we'll need to go on the record, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Give J.C. a second to read it. Okay, and at this time, at this time, we are going to go into a public hearing for Z-2-25 Murraysville Enterprises rezoning concerning the rezoning of 3.06 acres of land, tax parcel 491100 129 from PL Public Land to R2 Medium Density Residential. Mr. Nestico, would you like to introduce it?
Yes, I will introduce it. I also may be doing most of the dialogue, but I believe that, and I say that because in this case, we didn't have an applicant from the outside. In fact, the property owner approached the municipality about this property, and when the municipality received the information, we prompted the potential rezoning for this property based on the information we had at that time. And so what we have here, and I'll try to step us through it succinctly, but I may bounce around just a little bit. What we have is a property here located off of Hills Church Road, consisting of over 3 acres. When the property owner came forward, they were asking essentially questions about why the property was zoned as PL, public land. We didn't have information as to why that was the case. We had looked into it at that time. And when we looked into it, we really couldn't figure out the answer to that. So our first instinct was that maybe there was a mistake on the zoning map. So the municipality then began the rezoning process through the Planning Commission by virtue of a public hearing. And the goal of that was to try to address and rectify the issue and see what we could, see what we could do about the potential zoning mistake that we thought might be in place. Once the matter went to the Planning Commission, a public hearing was held. And at that public hearing, the neighbors, of course, surrounding the property were notified of the hearing, and they came forward and started to present information that shed a little bit of light on what was going on with the property itself. And the information that was provided essentially showed us that in the late 1980s, on record at both the Parks and Rec Commission, the Planning Commission, and also at Council, this land was to be dedicated as public municipal green space. In fact, that came about, oddly enough, based on the Fairfield plan, which was actually adjacent to this property. So this is not part of the Fairfield plan, but that plan is across the street. And so the discussion in the 80s was that Lot 14, this lot here in question, was to be included as green space in contemplation of that plan's approval. It looks like that's what everybody had concluded would constitute the green space for the Fairfield plan. Ultimately, as we fast forward, this property was never deeded to the municipality, and we can't find any formal documentation of the municipality accepting the property. But that was a helpful piece of information that the community brought forward, because then it allowed us to kind of investigate it a bit further. And again, that's where we kind of were able to start pulling meeting minutes and things like that we couldn't otherwise search unless somebody kind of pointed us to them. The records back then are all scanned in, but they're really not searchable by keywords or things like that. So then we started to look at the zoning process in the early 2000s a little bit more thoroughly. Now being able to search some of those records, because the digital versions of those are searchable, that's when we kind of came to realize that we think that maybe it was not a mistake, but rather that it was intentional, that this was intended to be green space as part of the Fairfield Plan of Development. And at that time, the property owner was actually part of the one of the working groups that worked on the zoning map at that time, the current zoning map that we're under now. And there were remarks during some of those public meetings by the property owner himself, or I guess he would be one of the members, one of the owners of this property, Murraysville Enterprises. And at that time, he had indicated that the zoning map looks good and kind of commended the municipality for how the zoning map turned out overall throughout the municipality. And so that kind of lended itself to a little bit more confirmation that, again, with the property owner having worked on the zoning map, or at least reviewed it, been maybe part of a committee of some sort, I'm not quite sure, it kind of maybe confirmed more of our suspicion that this was intentional. The property owner did know that it was going to be designated as public land, and as such, it probably wasn't a mistake. to provide a little bit further context, we do come across other properties in the municipality which are dedicated as green space, which are not dedicated to Murraysville. They're not in our name. So that has happened in the past. That's not uncommon. Because again, back many decades ago, the municipality would have that requirement during development to have green space, whereas now we have a fee in lieu. So sometimes developments, they'll pay a fee and they don't actually carve out any green space. So we have that scenario that has historically applied. And the other scenario that is somewhat similar to this, in fact, almost identical, there is another property just near this one that is privately owned, but also listed as PL, and it was, again, dedicated as green space. So we do have examples in our zoning ordinance outside of this, or at least one, where an area of land is privately owned, taxes are being paid, but it's designated in the zoning map as PL. So because of all of that, we had communications over the last several months with the property owner, of course, kind of going through this process and trying to navigate it. So I believe that the property owner or the heirs of the property owner are here. I'm certain that they would like to speak to the topic as well. And I don't know if some of the neighbors relating to this property are also here and present. They did come to the public meeting in front of planning. But because there is no applicant, it is the municipality. That's why I kind of present to you the set of facts that we have here today. So we kind of started this, again, with a little bit of an unknown and triggered the review process because we thought there might be a mistake. And now looking at it, it appears that maybe it's not a mistake, it was intentional, and that may be a frustration for the property owner, but ultimately that's kind of where we wind up. When it went to planning, I guess I'll kind of add in the last piece of this process. When it went to planning, typically planning gives a recommendation to council. When it went there, planning was a little bit uncertain of themselves as to the type of a recommendation that they wanted to give. And so they had requested a letter from the solicitor providing some sort of feedback. And because we wanted to keep the process moving forward, and because council is the ultimate decision maker, and because we have the solicitor here, we kind of just moved the process along because the property owner was kind of hoping to get some conclusion and some resolution to this. So as we sit here today, ultimately the decision is council's. We don't have a recommendation from planning. I'm not quite sure they were prepared or capable of giving one because it does deal with a legal circumstance. And so as we sit here now, it's in front of council. And it is, again, I'll further add, it is listed on the agenda for consideration under item 14A. Council certainly does not have to make a decision on item 14A this evening. I wanted to list it in the event that council was prepared to make a decision. But certainly, this is a public hearing. Council has the ability to table item 14A and bring it back to a subsequent meeting. But again, it was listed just in case council felt comfortable enough based on the results of the public hearing to give it consideration. So I don't know if there's anything else the solicitor would want to add, but that's, I guess, the background, and I would imagine there may be some folks here that want to speak to this issue and voice their feedback to council.
Okay. Wes, anything to add?
No, I think Mr. Nestico did a terrific job of researching this issue and finding out what happened back in May of 1989. I assume that based upon the history that it was probably intentional that this be public land. This was offered as a green space. The P's and the Q's weren't complied with to cause the property to be so indicated on the plan and deeded to the municipality of Murraysville. But I think based upon the minutes from the meeting and the history of this property, I would suggest that it was intentional that it be designated as an open green space because it predated the fee in lieu of, and also I just would like to add that, rezoning this property is 100% discretionary with council. I don't see any vested right issue or anything of that sort here. But I just wanted to say that probably based upon Mr. Nestico's research, that it was just not properly handled, but was probably intended to be an open space.
Okay. Council, any questions or concerns? Yeah.
And I pulled up the meeting minutes just to kind of provide some context here. At the planning meeting, it came up, Mr. Dorchak asked if lot number 14 property, which is intended for green area, could be deeded to the municipality. He stated the covenants running with the land stipulate there be no ball fields, fences, buildings, other changes, and that it remains as of now a green area until the year 2000. The other meeting was from the planning meeting. A question was raised about the possibility of dedicating open space or park area. Mr. Kress stated they are looking at space across the street to put in a baseball field. They're also looking at the possibility of a walking trail, but access is a problem. And they went on from there talking about the development. There is again, I don't want to belabor the issue, but again, I just want to make sure that it's clear for the record that there is some substance to the dialogue in those meetings. When they talked about the Fairfield plan at the Parks Commission meeting of May of '89, the commission accepted a 3+ acre parcel as an open space green area dedication that is located outside of the Fairfield plan in the floodplain of Steele's Run, and it describes the parcel 50-foot wide access to Westertown Road, encompassing a segment of Steele Run. It goes on from there describing the property. Mr. Joe Dorchak, representing the residents from Hills Church Acres, whose plan the dedication is actually in, presented documentation of deed covenants that restrict development on this parcel. Sorry. Trying to help expedite things, I apologize. Whose plan the dedication is actually in, presented documentation of deed covenants that restrict development on this parcel to single-family dwellings. The residents were opposed to the development of a baseball field on this parcel, but they were in favor of open space. So again, those are all municipal bodies that provide recommendations and feedback to council. And ultimately, the council meeting minutes from May 15th of '89 describe there is a separate parcel consisting of approximately 3 acres, which will be green area according to Mr. Lynch, which is part of this plan. Mr. Lynch further stated that there's a covenant on the property that is to be used for a single-family dwelling only until the year 2000. So there are some issues there is some language within the deeds that create confusion about what type of development and whether it can be single-family and what year. But ultimately, the zoning map was approved in 2005, and it was placed as public land at that time. And so that kind of led us to believe that, and again, the individual property owner being somewhat a part of that process, it kind of led us to believe that it may be more detrimental to the neighboring properties who kind of relied on this as being green space, surrounding their owners, the properties that they are in ownership of. So that is, I think, probably it. Maybe a little bit additional information, but I would anticipate that there will maybe several folks that are wanting to speak.
One question, is there something unique about the year 2000? Like, it looks like green space until then, and then what? Or are there examples other than this that you reserve green space, for eternity, or what?
Is that when they went to fee and lieu, maybe?
As best we can tell, during the plan's approval process for the Hills Church Acres Plan of Lots, edition number 2, this was done in, can't see the date on here, but I believe it was the late 70s, 1976. There is language in that plan that talks about the covenants being binding and running with the land until 1/1/2000. So I think where that language comes from is when the plan was actually conceived of and developed, they put covenants on the various properties, this one being one, but then in the 80s, that's whenever I think they kind of dedicated it as green space in perpetuity. And so I think the original intention when the development kind of took place, there were certain covenants that ran with these various properties, and then I think that kind of then went away in the 80s. Well, I shouldn't say went away, but I think then when this property was dedicated in the 80s, it kind of then maybe overruled the original intent of the property, which was to be developed as a single-family home with certain setbacks that are called out for in the actual plan itself.
Michael, would you bring up the rezoning map?
Sure. Bear with me.
It's hard to see on my phone.
Not a problem. I apologize. I don't have it on this computer, so I'm just going to pull it from the website quickly.
Are you inquiring where it's located?
I just want to be clear which parcel that's highlighted that says to be rezoned. Is that the 3-acre, the bigger, and then there's another long, narrow piece that actually is denoted as public land?
Somewhat shaped like a T.
But it's also purple but not shaded.
Let me see where
The,
we're on this.
you know, or the one that is shaded, is that?
Hold on. It's kind of lagging here, so I apologize.
No problem.
It's over here.
Yeah, that's it,
It's
right
not,
there.
the map isn't really moving. I think it's because it's on the, it's this.
The orange piece.
Yeah, it's this piece right here.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to be,
Yeah, so it's kind of,
so it's connected to another piece of public land. So that's.
yes, and the other piece of public land is the
Wouldn't that
one that
seem
I was describing in the same boat as this one, which is privately owned, taxable parcel, but designated as PL.
To me, that would almost seem like purposeful, that those two pieces were connected, you know, when the
That's,
thought was going into it, so that's all. No?
The property borders on Steele's Run, too, so it could have been intentional because, A, it's in a floodplain, and B, it is a pretty significant waterway.
Okay. Council, any questions before I open it up? Okay. I don't believe anyone signed up to speak on this issue, but is there anyone who would like to come to the microphone and speak? Just state your name and address, please. Okay, doesn't look like anyone would actually like to speak on this issue, so don't have a ton of input either way. Okay, any final questions or concerns from anyone before we close the hearing? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
So moved to close?
Second.
Thank you, Jamie and Mac. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. We are closed. Thank you, everyone. That will bring us now to our regular meeting. Can I please have a roll call review?
Mr. Lemak,
Here.
Mr. Diakopoulos,
Here.
Mr. Dice,
Here.
Mr. Stepanovich,
Here.
Mr. Olszewski, Mr. McKenna,
Here.
Mrs. Lane,
Present.
Mayor Sina.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Mr. Nestico, do we have any unlisted amendments this evening?
we do. We have one unlisted amendment, which would be to item 13A, the vacant property ordinance. And there is a typo. The language of that item should read advertise, ordinance number 1104-25. And certainly, this is an item that I think has gained a little bit of traction within the community, something that I'll address during the chief administrator comments. But there may also be a desire to table that item for this evening. But I do want to clear up some confusion and certainly address the topic during comments. But if council does choose to consider that item, it would properly read advertise ordinance 1104. We have not advertised it yet, so we certainly couldn't adopt it without that. So I do apologize to council for that.
Okay. All right, and no worries. Thank you. All right, that brings us to our consent calendar items. Only the minutes from October 21st. Any questions or concerns about the minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes from the October 21st meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Carl and Eli. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, they are unanimous. That brings us to comments by the mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Dice. If you didn't have any leaves in your yard yesterday, you probably do today. The Curbside Leaf Collection Program 2025, to schedule a pickup on one of the collection dates, please fill out the Curbside Leaf Collection Program form on the website. There's a 20-bag limit for each collection date. The deadline to sign up for each date is Thursday before the fall pickup. And just a reminder, the next one is November 8th, which is this Saturday, is that if you don't sign up, that doesn't mean they're just going to pick them up for you, because they may not even be on that street if they don't have any other pickups. Secondly, it's Veterans Day. The public program is going to be this Saturday, November the 8th, 2025. There'll be a program honoring veterans at Murraysville Community Park at 10:30 a.m. Several military organizations, first responders, and scout troops will be in attendance. State Representative Jill Cooper, Mayor-elect Dane Dice, and Pastor Dan Lawrence of the Murraysville Electric Alliance Church will be speaking. The public is invited and encouraged to attend. Next, we have a blood drive coming up on Tuesday, November 11th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's at the Murraysville Community Center. Please register ahead of time at www.redcrossblood.org. Lastly, we have a Murraysville Recreation Hot Chocolate Hike coming up Saturday, November 15th at the Duff Park, 4500 School Road South at 10 a.m. Join the Recreation Department for some fun hikes, 2 to 3 miles over the winter. These are wooded hikes with some slopes and may require stepping over fallen trees. Please dress for the weather and plan for the terrain. You can look it up at murraysvilleparecreation.com or call the 327-2100 extension 131 here. That concludes my announcements for this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. That brings us to, comments by the Chief Administrator, Mr. Nestico.
Sure. I do have a couple updates. One regarding Duff Park. They did do the grading this week for the Duff Park parking lot. Right now it is blocked off. They're hoping to pave this Friday. That's whenever the contractor is expected to pave that lot, provided that weather cooperates. But again, it is closed right now, so anybody going to the park there may want to park at the trailhead, Roberts Trailhead. They are also working on the restroom there, the accessibility for that. We'll have a remote connection so that we can ensure that the restrooms lock and unlock remotely. That way we can set them on timers and again allow for access or prohibit or restrict access in the evenings, things like that. So they're working on not only the parking lot, but then also the accessibility to the restrooms. And again, because of there are some internet issues, I guess, that are leading to some of those concerns. So they are working on that and trying to get that solved as well. But there is an expectation that the parking lot should be open rather soon, hopefully next week. If not, it'll certainly be by the following. And the folks that are using the park will be able to, again, park there sometime soon. Just by way of a small update, Public Works is doing paving over on Haymaker Farm Road. That's occurring currently. And then lastly, the Public Works Department has been working pretty diligently to resolve some water line issues that we've had in MCP it caused them to have to dig up some of the park to prevent a water line leak. They did resolve the issue. It did come at a cost, ultimately, because there was water loss that occurred in the park. And then they happened to find another leak. They were alerted by the Miracle League that the concession stand sounded like water was running underneath, and they found another leak that's occurring under the pavement there. So they're going to be working on that and getting that leak resolved, I believe, tomorrow. And then they're going to do pavement restoration at the Miracle League when the weather breaks in the spring. So again, some issues for Public Works to resolve within the community, but they've been doing rather well at addressing those concerns. The last item that I would mention under the Chief Administrator comments does relate to the proposed ordinance listed under 13A, the vacant property ordinance. I want to address this item because if council does choose to table it for any given reason this evening, it is something that is not imperative, so it certainly doesn't have to be considered right away. There is a busy agenda, as we're already quite a ways into this meeting and didn't even get to the action items yet. So I recognize that, and I think that it could make sense to table it just out of the interest of time. But I did want to address a few items of concern because it did get some traction here over the last week or so leading up to the election. When this item was presented to council at the last meeting, the goal or the intent behind it was kind of just to, what I would say, plant the seed and just give council kind of the conceptual idea of what the ordinance may entail and why we may want to consider it. Again, I'll reiterate, as I did at the last meeting, as it was reported in the newspaper, that this is certainly not something imperative. And if the community is not in favor of it or council is not in favor of it, it is certainly not something that we have to have. I described it at that meeting as another tool out of the toolbox to try to assist our code enforcement department when it comes to addressing some problem properties in the community. Again, as reiterated at that meeting, we don't have too many problem properties, but just like every other community, we are certainly not immune, and there are areas in the community where we have vacant properties. Again, I want to stress, again, because I want to clear the confusion for the community, that certainly the goal was not to try to force something into place that is of concern in any way without having the community be able to weigh in on that. In fact, the amount of folks that spoke out or that it became kind of an election topic, in some ways is refreshing because our community certainly cares and wants to ensure that any decision or action taken by council is considered seriously and given full thought and full credit towards what is being considered. This ordinance, again, just a little bit of background so we can kind of clear up some confusion, does not in any way allow for the municipality to take over a property, to take ownership of a property. It is not the type of a vacant property ordinance that you might see in an urban environment where you kind of would be able to take the land or turn it into a community garden, things like that. This is fully intended to be only for vacant structures, buildings. There are a couple pieces of the definitions of the ordinance that I think probably do need to be ironed out so that it does not in any way contemplate vacant land. When I say vacant, I should say unimproved land being part of this ordinance, because that is not the intent, not only for Murraysville, but for any other community that has this type of ordinance. Unimproved land is really not to be considered, but I do think that some of the definitions could be cleaned up a little bit there. And again, I don't want to dive too far into it because if it is a topic of discussion tonight, we can certainly go through the ins and outs of that. Additionally, there is a discretionary item in there that lists the chief administrator as kind of the judge of making a decision on whether a fee should be waived. Again, I don't think that it should read that way. I don't know if that came in there because of kind of a control F, searching for different language and replacing it with chief administrator as opposed to town manager or borough manager. As I described to council previously, we did pull this ordinance from several other communities and kind of pieced it together. But I do think that most communities utilize the majority vote of council language in that place, and I think that would make the most sense for this community. So again, these are some of the items that, again, probably were maybe a little bit heavily scrutinized, and I think rightfully so, but also weren't intended to be part of a final draft and a final approved version. And again, There are some of the other things that we heard about were whether you're a extended vacation or in a care home of some sort. And again, all of those items are clearly established exceptions to this ordinance that would not apply. And I guess I'll maybe conclude just the little monologue with the goal or the intent behind this ordinance is to address properties that either should be in use in the community or properties that are becoming problems within neighborhoods. We do get calls from the public about problem properties, and certainly we have tools at our disposal, such as the Property Maintenance Code, which allows us to go in and cite somebody for high grass or a dilapidated structure. And that works some of the time, most of the time, but not always. And I think this ordinance would be kind of another piece of that puzzle, and it certainly won't work all of the time, but it may work some of the time to try to address those concerns for the community and for the surrounding property owners whose property values may be diminished because of a vacant property. Again, we have a commercial property on our highway corridor that comes to mind right in the center of our highway corridor that is sitting vacant. It's not being marketed. It's not being listed for sale. It's just kind of in waiting. We have those same examples in the northern part of the community right off of Salzburg Road. We have them in residential neighborhoods as well, where neighbors do call and complain and say, can you please do anything about this? Our property values are going down. I can't sell my home if I live next to this property. And again, I could give specific examples if need be, but for the sake of kind of the narrative, that was the impetus for considering something like this. It certainly wasn't an attempt to be a land grab. And when you hear the words police powers, that's legal terminology, no different than the police powers to go and cite somebody for high grass or weeds or a falling gutter. So again, I hope and I think that that some of the things that are listed in this ordinance while being a draft were maybe a little bit over scrutinized. And again, I think that's okay because that means our community is concerned about what takes place and what council is considering for adoption. But I reiterate to the community that one, we would want to refine this and make sure it fits properly if we do want to have this in our community. And the ultimate goal, as I expressed at the last meeting, would be to try to address some of the problem properties that we are very much aware of in the community and not necessarily to go out and try to create an inventory of properties for any particular reason. We certainly don't have the ability staffing-wise to go out and try to catalog all of the vacancies in the community. And no different than high grass, a lot of times we are reactionary. We rely on the calls from the community, from the public, to go out and address the concerns, and we try our best using the ordinances we have in place to do that. And again, the proposal was intended to be that. I think that there is some fine-tuning that certainly can and should be done, but we don't want to alarm the community in any way in suggesting that this is an attempt to try to take over properties, or to try to possess them in some way, or even to try to start to create an inventory where we can start inspecting people's homes or otherwise. So again, we can work on the definitions. This is something that can be considered whether this evening or in the future. I'm sure certainly the public will have feedback about it, but I just wanted to be sure we kind of get ahead of that and make sure that the community knows that some of the beliefs regarding what the ordinance was intended for is probably not at all what was intended. So again, I apologize for maybe the lengthy monologue during Chief Administrator comments, but again, we don't want to cause alarm in the community. That's certainly not the intent behind this, and hopefully if it is considered, we'll get it on the right track before it's even considered for advertisement or adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just say to the extent anyone is here to comment on that, I'm glad I missed all that. That's just wild. That's not at all what that ordinance does. It's just another tool to help fight blight in the community. So, yeah. Moving on. Do you have a comment? Yeah, sorry. Okay, moving on then. That brings us to community input. Verdale, go see if anyone signed up. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And please just state your name and address at the microphone, and we'll start with Mr. Ronald Summerhill.
Good evening.
Aye.
Mayor, Ladies and gentlemen of the council, the administrator, and staff. For the record, proposed ordinance 1104-25 is a bad idea. It creates a tax on individual holdings, vacant properties, or land for personal investment or private use. It also creates a public registry for insurance companies, developers, and criminal activity with easy access to known properties that may become subject to increased insurance premiums, unwanted purchase solicitations, valuations, or the release of other private information. The proposed ordinance also bestows the chief administrator with power to issue a summary offense against community citizens and allow the waiver thereof at his discretion, a power usually reserved for those with proper legal authority and law enforcement training. Though the proposed ordinance does make exception for certain conditions, waiving the registration fee, it still requires a registration for absence beyond 60 days, which creates an undue burden on the administration and its citizenry. The proposed ordinance, however, does not include a provision for those on extended military deployment. We have current codes in place to address many of these property maintenance concerns. Proposed ordinance 1104-25 does nothing more than incentivize the sale of idle property to developers by those who can least afford the cost. Ron Summerhill, 4827 Christie Road, Murraysville. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that brings us to Mr. Dennis Pavlik.
I too am here to urge you to reject this proposal. These types of vacant property proposals are not new. They've been around for 25 or more years. When I was on council, we had the similar thing. There are many NGO organizations who classify vacant property as property hoarding and an evil that needs to be stamped out so the property can be put to use for equitable distribution amongst people. Previous councils have rejected that anytime it was proposed. You can state all you want what the intent of the ordinance was, but clearly the language that counts is what's written down. Abandoned property shall mean any property including but not limited to one or more buildings, structures, or vacant lots. Another place you refer to any property. Property is any property of improved or unimproved land. So, while there are exemptions from the yearly fee for people who are on extended military or illness or vacation, they still have to register their property within 60 days. If they don't, there's a $1,000 a day fine that can be levied. In addition, this is a confiscatory action, and these NGOs say the way you get to take the land, since the Constitution represents a pesky little interference, these property rights with us managing the land properly, we suggest you put a whole bunch of expensive fees. So you have a fee on these vacant properties, which includes vacant land by your definition that's written here, of the first year $300, increasing to $5,000 a year after year 10. There are many people who have purchased land to be a buffer and want a vacant lot next to them. They may want it for their own green space. Instead of trying to force the municipality to give it to them, they purchase it for themselves. They may want to retain that property as an investment. In addition to the already exorbitant property taxes and school taxes that we pay, you're going to put a fee of $5,000 a year? So this is clearly what's written. The only way this ordinance can be interpreted is what's written. And if you don't intend to vigorously enforce an ordinance, then don't pass it. We already have building codes, we have property maintenance codes, and I think that those really need to be strengthened the way we enforce those. Now, I've had a number of people, when I brought this up to them, says, yeah, a friend at the church says he's been complaining for 4 years. His neighbor has a fence with an in-ground pool that's collapsed, and he can't get the municipality to enforce having that fence be repaired. So I think we need to really look at our ordinances. If we can't enforce them, and they aren't doing what they do, we have those ordinances to tweak. These ordinances, as vacant property ordinances, there's a whole group of people, a whole nest of NGOs that are just trying to say, here's how we can take over this property and take vacant spaces into vibrant places. And they actually even have people who they say will administer this for you for a small fraction of your fee that you charge. So these ordinances, that's what they're designed to do. They're designed to take the property by excessive fees and confiscation. And if you own a quarter-acre lot, it's $5,000. If you own 500 acres, it's $5,000. So to me, that just seems totally absurd. So I don't think you can fine-tune this. You have to really reject it, and I suggest that you actually have a vote on it and kill it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that brings us to Miss, I think I messed this up last time, Jolene Hunter? Jolene? Joanne, darn. Thank you.
Joanne Hunter. I live on Goldie Lane, and I'm president of the Summerhill HOA Association. I think I mistakenly put individual on that, but I'm speaking for the association
absolutely.
right now. I just wanted to provide you all an update on the condition, one of the conditions for the Summerhill property, Phase 2. We still have yet to have the deed for Lot 22 recorded. And until we have that deed recorded, and Gary, I think your attorney was working on that, we cannot sign the amendment, which has all the coordinates outlined clearly to sign that, to have that property exchanged. So at this point, I just want to inform you that that condition has not yet been met. Okay?
All right, thank you, thank you. Okay, next up, we have Kathy Add.
Hi. Should I do that? Kathy Adesi, 4802 Carrie Ann Lane, Murraysville. I am part of, I'm one of the original owners in the Summerhill. I guess it's considered Phase 1, although it was always supposed to be one 94-unit development. There's 54 homes that are built there, and I'm not really sure the order of this meeting tonight because I guess this is on the agenda to be voted on. And I mean, there are so many things that are not done. And the one thing I want to say before you do vote on this, please come and look at this property. They're proposing 61 lots to be built. Originally it was supposed to be 94, and there's currently 54 now. And in the original plan, they weren't going to cut into the hillside right underneath properties that are right up above. I think you have problems in the past with properties that have slid, the water runoff. There's just so many issues. And it's not up on the screen right now what this proposed development is, and I'm really not sure why I'm here speaking right now until it's actually presented, but there are conditions that haven't been met, promises made, and I'm sure eventually some of them will come through. But the integrity of this project, the impact of this project, the fact that it's only one access in to this entire community, there is only one road, it's a private road that we are paying to maintain. And honestly, I'd like to see something built there and that then this road be I'm looking for my words here. Sorry, I'm get nervous when I speak. There's just so many things about this proposal that are just not right. They're not there yet. And my biggest concern is that there are 12 units being proposed to be built into the mountain that is directly below the homes on Shirley Lane. And those homes are less than, well, I think they're 20 feet away from the line where it drops off. Some may be more. But I'm really worried about those. I just don't understand just trying to build every single spot that you possibly can, filling all those houses in. It's just, I would just love something to be built there that has integrity. And this development is going to be developed by the developer, but then it's going to be sold in pieces to Ryan Homes. And I mean, I know Ryan Homes built a quality product, but they're only going to build on, houses that are sold or are going to be sold. They're not going to buy all 61 units at one time. So if say the market goes down, people don't buy, interest rates are high. I mean, there's all kinds of economic factors. I'm really worried about this development being abandoned. There have been others. In the middle of it, when it's all dug up, and then we have a road that isn't complete, and we were promised that our road would get resurfaced, the one road, once the development is pretty well along. So I'm just really concerned. Please don't vote on this tonight. There's just too many things that are not done. And maybe there could be a way to come together and find a way to put together a project that really would serve our community and not just throw another 61 townhomes into Murraysville and impact our schools and impact everything else about our living here. So I know you care a lot about what is developed, and I really appreciate you listening to my concerns. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, that's it for the individuals who signed up. For the good of the order, would anyone else like to give public comment? Right here. Okay, seeing no takers, we will move on. That brings us to liaison comments and committee reports. Let's start on this end. Jason?
The library meets on later this month, third Thursday.
The Parks and Recreation Foundation met on October 22nd. Several things. One, the subject of fundraising for the foundation, and it was determined to speak for some guidance with the course designer, and also to speak with a community, North Huntington, that has a disc golf program ongoing, and see what they have to say about fundraising. Also, there will be for a bike course in Bear Hollow, and there's an individual that is related with the foundation who basically indicates that he's going to go out and solicit funds to support that project. The Natural Playground has a 3x4 sign, which has been approved. And just as a note that the Parks and Recreation Foundation was active at the Trick or Treat on the Trail at Murraysville Community Park.
Awesome. Thank you. Matt?
Parks and Recreation meets next Tuesday. Obviously, the only thing that recent was the Trick or Treat on the Trail, which was, again, a huge success. So thank you to the staff that put a lot of hard work into that.
Awesome. Thank you. Jamie?
Next Planning Commission meeting is set to meet, I believe, still the 11th of November. Michael? Is
I
it still
apologize.
going to be on the 11th
It would be
of
next
November?
Tuesday, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear since it's that.
Tuesday, November 11th.
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Eli?
Yeah, the pension committee meets on Thursday, November 13th for its quarterly review.
Okay, awesome. And FTMSA meets November 20th. That brings us to our workshop items. We're going to begin with 9A, a discussion regarding a proposed stormwater fee. Mr. Nestico?
Yes, council will recall, the municipality contracted the service to conduct a study on a potential stormwater fee. LSSC conducted that study. They are present to do a presentation here for us this evening. So I'll pull up the slideshow, and again, because this is kind of an initial presentation, I think we'll go through it, maybe not as in depth as we will need to go going forward. But again, this is kind of just to give a presentation to council as to the results of the stormwater survey that was conducted by LSSE. So I'm going to pull this up here, try to get it into full screen. Thank you. Sorry, I'm getting you up here. Okay. All right, I think we're good. Okay.
Thank you. As introduction first, Sean Wingrove with LSSE. Happy to be in front of council and the mayor this evening to present here. We appreciate you having us to hopefully help with this. We're working, as Mr. Nestico mentioned, for a handful of months at this point to work through the analysis. I wanted to give council and the mayor a little bit of an update here on where we're at, what the results were, and first for benefit of the audience, also a little bit of background on the why and the purpose here. So do have a slideshow prepared. We'll work through that generally. I did provide this here as well if that can be distributed to council afterwards. So first item to talk about, big picture, why. We'll talk about this in a few slides as we go through here, but this is going to set our agenda for the first half of the discussion of what are the needs, what are the opportunities here, and actually convenient timing, whether this is planned or not, the budget discussion a half an hour or so ago of how do we meet those needs from an equitable perspective to look forward proactively to make sure we're meeting the municipality's needs in total. Specifically from a stormwater perspective, we've got a lot of competing interests. Certainly MS4 compliance, as council knows, the regulatory requirements have amped up a lot over the last few years. 2003 was the first MS4 permit. A lot of mapping, education, testing, that kind of thing. In 2018, significant change there from a capital improvements perspective. Money to build BMPs in 2027, that's going to reset. We're going to start this cycle again, that we're going to need capital funds for stormwater projects. Infrastructure, no different than any other community. We've got infrastructure that at this point is decades old. We need to have a proactive plan and a reliable revenue source to be able to address those items. And then capital improvements, changing weather patterns, aging infrastructure, that kind of thing. We know there are areas in the community that we need to upsize pipes, we need to add detention, we need to extend storm sewers, and the capital improvement demand comes into there more and more, especially as we get these big summer events from a stormwater perspective. The aspect of why we look at the avenue here of a stormwater fee compared to a real estate tax and millage increase is equitability. We've found that from a real demand on the system perspective, stormwater, no different than water or sewer, is a utility. It's a service that the community provides to the residents. Collects the water, keeps the roads free to drive on, and helps us comply overall with our water quality goals, well, more than goals, requirements from DEP. The fee structure that we'll talk about, we've found in many communities, creates a more equitable way to distribute that need for revenue. Assessed value isn't a good metric, isn't a good barometer of what's the stormwater impact for an individual property. The actual physical characteristics of the property are a better indicator. So, big picture, a lot of discussion in a lot of these about fee versus tax. It truly is a fee applicable to everybody. So a tax exempt perspective for a property wouldn't come into play. Uniformly distributed amongst all properties. So the pot of those contributing is also bigger than if we looked at, for example, funding stormwater through real estate taxes, as it sounds like mostly the municipality does today, when real estate or earned income, regular taxation. So Little bit of background there. I think the important thing then to hopefully get across tonight is a little bit of the structure of how the fee's set up and the analysis that we did. So as we look at this, we really see 4 building blocks of how you look at this fee, how you assess it, and how we do the analysis of, when we get to the punchline here, of what the numbers are. Those 4 building blocks are looking at the community, what type of properties are here. Once we divide up the properties and categorize them, how do we establish an objective metric to measure what their impact is to the storm sewer system? Once we evaluate that, we want to look at budget. What are our needs from a financial perspective that we need to fund with this revenue source? Because ultimately, this money, if council would move forward, goes into a separate account. It doesn't get intermingled with general funds, no different than you have a parks fund, a capital improvement fund. This money is dedicated only to stormwater. So we want to look at that from a budget perspective. What do we truly need? And then we want to look at credits. Because when property owners do things on their property to help the overall stormwater, they deserve a reduced fee. And that needs to come into the equation of how do we set the number. So those 4 items, starting first with types of properties. So 5 categories you'll see on the screen there. The baseline category that we use as comparison to everything else is a single-family residential property. So just think single-family detached home, the average house in Murraysville. And we'll talk about that in the metric next. So that's one category. A lot of those here, obviously. Single-family attached, so a townhome unit, basically, an attached dwelling that we'll look at separately. A large single-family property, so properties 3 acres or more. We'll talk about why these designations mean something in a second here. And then non-single family. This one's a little bit of a misnomer because it still says single family in there, but this is the catch-all category for everything else, everything that's not an individual home. This complex, for example, Get-Go, PNC, restaurant, anything. Everything else, schools, parks, everything else fits into this non-single family category. It's the catch-all. And then the lowest category, or the bottom category, not lowest, but is vacant land. So the concept of this is that in looking at this as a user fee, you're paying for, you as a property owner are paying for your improvements from a natural condition. Your impact to the property that created more runoff that was there than natural. So a lot that's not developed that has effectively no, and we set a low bar here in the draft, is 600 square feet, no impervious area. They wouldn't know a fee. They're not a developed property. So what we do with these then is back to the beginning here of a single-family residential property, do a statistical analysis of what's the average or typical amount of impervious cover. So hard surface, rooftop, driveway, patio, sidewalk, on an average single-family property within the municipality. That then becomes our metric for all of the other properties. So, in different, I mentioned we've done a number of these for a number of municipalities. They vary, and it depends on what the community looks like. You'd be far different than Export if they did one. Be far different than, I guess just as a couple examples, we've done where our office is, our main office in Coriopolis, Dense River Community. Their average was 1,900 square feet. Fox Chapel, kind of the other end of the spectrum, big, huge lots, theirs was 8,400. As we do the analysis for the municipality here, the typical single-family lot here has about 5,800 square feet of impervious area. So that's our benchmark. If kind of in the loop of sewage planning, this is kind of the parallel to what an EDU is in sewage planning, an equivalent daily unit. We say that an average single-family home has 400 gallons per day. That's how we kind of partition out sewage. From a stormwater perspective, we have an equivalent residential unit that's 5,800 square feet.
Sorry. If I click off, then your
Okay.
cursor doesn't work, so I apologize.
No, no worries. Okay, so back to where we had our 5 categories, really, down to 4 that receive a bill. So single-family residential property, the normal one under 3 acres. From an implementation perspective, the assumption that the report made is that there's not much variation there, that it's more of an administrative burden to individually calculate each one of those. There's not variation by and large. They'll all be assessed a uniform fee of 1 ERU. Townhome, again, as we do an analysis, they're on the order of a half when you look at their driveway, that kind of thing. The last 2 categories, then, single-family resident or large single-family residential, non-single-family residential, those are looked at individually because they're not as uniform, not as cookie-cutter, assessed then proportionate to a single-family house. So if our ERU number is 5,800, for simple math, if there was, again, if the gas station down the street here is 58,000 square feet of impervious area, that's 10 ERUs, they would pay then proportionately 10 times as much as the normal single-family home. So you'll see the breakdown there of what's in the municipality. Again, vast majority of Murraysville, typical single-family residential properties. You'll notice the non-single-family above there. And this is where the equitability comes in of kind of using this different than you would from a millage perspective. You'll see that the average there from a non-single-family perspective is about 7.5 ERUs. About 4,000 ERUs total over 530 properties. The large single-family about 2.2. So that's where we have that variation that we want to look at those individually. So a whole ball of wax on the order of 12,000 ERUs in the community. We take that information and we've worked with Michael and staff to kind of look at the budget, look at previous year's expenses from a stormwater perspective. And we lump those into 4 categories for sake of the study. The first one, administration. There's a portion, for example, of Michael's time each day that's stormwater related. Certainly public works, code enforcement, the engineering department. The fee structure allows you to take that percentage of their salary benefits and put it in here. So that's the administrative component. Annual O&M, this is what we talked about in the beginning, aging infrastructure. Miles and miles of pipes here and thousands, tens of thousands of inlets, probably dozens of detention basins. I saw later on the agenda that there's consideration for awarding a contract for cleaning up some detention basins. That would fit into this category. Capital improvements. I heard earlier of X number of $1 million of capital improvements looking forward. And then MS4 compliance, we talked about pollutant reduction plan, and I'm in the rear view a little bit, but we're looking forward at volume management plan for the next permit. So we know capital expenses are coming there. As we comb through that budget, or comb through those needs, we look at this in from a round number perspective, around $965,000 a year in dedicated stormwater items. Some assumptions made there from a big picture perspective, from what's public works cost there, equipment costs, materials costs, contracted labor, all of that. But as we looked, we think this is a reasonable number for sake of discussion here on what's the primary stormwater push for the municipality each year. So we've got one half of the equation first as 12,000 plus or minus ERUs. There's an adjustment to that, and as this would get implemented, if council decides to move forward, the caveat to the stuff that we talked about before is give people a credit. If you've got a detention basin, if you've got a rain barrel, if you've got a rain garden, you've got an underground tank, you have an ability to reduce your ERUs because you're doing something on your property. And as we go through the process, we can talk a little bit about minutia of those, but this is the big picture credit, which ultimately impacts the overall ERU count. So where we end up from a kind of punchline perspective is we account for credits and kind of the minutia of the calculation, there's really on the order of 11,000 billable ERUs, with a necessary revenue of $965,000. If you divide that out over the number of ERUs you have, it ends up with a recommendation for consideration of an ERU amount of $7 per ERU per month, 7 a month or 84 annually. So that would be the flat rate for single family. Again, attached single family, if you recall this slide earlier, of half, 42, and then non-single family billed proportionate to that. Again, so in the easy math example I had before of 10 ERUs, their bill then would be, instead of $84 annually, $840 annually. Again, in a means to make this as objective and equitable as possible for distribution of these costs. Again, to maintain the system, to keep in permanent compliance, stay on DEP's good side, all of that good stuff, in kind of in as fair and equitable manner as you can. So that's the last slide I had. But big picture, I know kind of quick overview here of a lot of work behind it, but that's the punchline of where we ended up, back and forth with staff, of a recommendation for council and the mayor's consideration. With that, that's really what I had prepared for this evening. Happy to answer questions if there are any for this evening. We need to return in the future, kind of dig in once you guys have a chance to digest as well. We can certainly do that, but wanted to get a little bit of an introduction in front of everybody this evening.
Are you familiar with the area? I mean, Export or Delmont or Penn Township or Monroeville or Penn Hills? Do they have fees or what?
Yeah, so Delmont is conducting a study, or may have recently adopted. They are in the process. Monroeville's had one for 4 or 5 years. Their ERU number is $10 an ERU. Allegheny Township in Westmoreland County just adopted one 4 or 5 months ago. Number in Allegheny County, there's a good number of fees.
Well, you mentioned Allegheny Township.
Yes.
Do you, off your top of your head, do you know what their ERU is?
Theirs is $5.50, I believe.
Thank you for the presentation.
Yes.
What is, if you look at some of the properties around here that are commercial or church, what is a typical ERU of that type of structure?
Yeah, it really varies, because it's one by one individually analyzed for those. So, I mean, a big property could have an annual bill of 5 figures. It could be $12,000, $15,000, some of those. In most communities, well, I'll say 2 things there. Many of those are often eligible for credit. You know, they have some, especially if they've been developed in the last 30 years, they have some sort of detention base and that kind of thing. So that's always an important outreach part of it. And then, you know, fee structure as far as how you bill annually, quarterly. But sometimes there can be some significant numbers. You know, all proportionate, though, to what an individual resident is paying.
Churches are included?
Yes. Yeah, the basis and the kind of the theory of the fee is that there are no exemptions. Even for this property, Michael and the crew will make a fund transfer from the general fund to the stormwater fund for the bill you get for this property. It's applied uniformly to all. Everybody's served by the storm sewer system. Churches, schools, there are some sort of outside of the box credits we've worked with too, that when we talk about MS4 compliance, where I started, some of that is public education, public involvement. There's a benefit that those groups that have a congregation or have people can do to help the borough offset some of our obligations too. So there are some other opportunities for them to receive credit.
Okay.
So, yeah, just let's assume it's approved.
Sure.
The what happens next? I mean, do you have to go to all the properties that are not in the bucket of residential and make a determination before you implement? Is that?
So that's been done. That's been the work we've been doing in the background. So yeah, it's, so the process is, obviously, it's not financially feasible for us to survey each property or visit each one. So it's done with aerial photography, with GIS data. We use GIS tools to get the impervious area. When, if you were to implement, there's an appeal process and there's a credit process. The appeal process is that someone feels that they're being charged and this really is an impervious area. You know, they can submit, we can do a field review, that kind of thing. But the legwork of that to build to all these numbers is ready. We have an inventory of all of the properties in Murraysville, how many ERUs they should be, and then if we were to settle on a number, whether it's 7 or something else, what they would be billed, that could be turned over to a billing agency to bill.
And this ERU would be in addition to monies currently spent by the municipality to deal with ERU or in place of? Like right now, to take care of the stormwater fee, if we come up with a $400,000, this is off the top of my head, then that, it would be 400,000 plus like a $7 or?
This would be.
Or in place of?
Michael can help, but the intent of this is to help relieve the general fund. So you're taking funds that are counted there, moving them to stormwater so that you've got some flexibility also in your general fund for kind of all the other stuff. Again, 45 minutes ago, whenever it was, an hour ago, we talked about the other needs area. This would be move stuff from general fund to stormwater fund.
Do the majority of the communities that we were talking about, Penn Township, Monroeville, whatever, do they mostly do that yearly, monthly, quarterly? How do they?
So we didn't prepare Monroeville's. I can't talk about them specifically, but the vast majority of them, especially from a residential perspective, if we're talking about $84 a month or annually, most will bill annually. The only ones that don't are the communities that already send a bill, if they send garbage or if they send sewer monthly and they just lump it together. My understanding is the municipality really doesn't bill anybody like that.
Right.
So in that case, most in your position have done it annually. And then if you have somebody with a big bill, maybe you give them quarterly. But they've also found, just from an administrative perspective, if people just want to pay it once.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation, too.
Yeah, that would be to your discretion, actually, however you want to bill.
Okay. Further input from council? No, thank you so much for the presentation.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Thank you. Okay, that will do it for our workshop items, council. Thank you. The first action item is the vacant property ordinance. And before we have any sort of motion, I might question to council regarding 13A, the vacant property ordinance. Is this worth further investigation? This was simply going to be another tool in staff's toolbox. And there's a part of me that questions if it's even worth further investigation or further time. Maybe we should just let staff know tonight we don't really wish to proceed with it. So council, thoughts on that?
I'd like to get rid of it indefinitely. I think it has got a potentiality for some real problems. I would like to, when a motion's made, make a motion to do that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm along that thought too.
Okay.
Me too.
So it sounds, does anyone have contrary ideas or input? Okay, hearing none, what I think we'll just do is we'll just say 13A fails for lack of a motion, and that'll be that. We'll just not do anything with it further.
Problem.
So just after further review and community input, we'll just not proceed with the vacant property ordinance. That brings us now to another one that is a little interesting. Can I have a motion for 14A?
I'd like to make a motion for consideration of Z-2-25 Murraysville Enterprises rezoning to rezone 3.06 acres of land along Hills Church Road, tax parcel 49-11-00-0-129 from P-L public land to R-2 medium density residential.
Second.
Thank you, Jason and Jamie. Yeah, this is an interesting one to me. I was hoping for some public input from someone. There's an individual who maybe has an idea. Yeah, sir, please.
All right.
While he's coming forward, if I may,
Yeah.
the item 14A and B were both written consideration of, because I didn't want to be presumptuous as to the decision that council may make as to approval or denial. So I would say that you would want to be clear that based on the reading of that ordinance, we would want to make it clear whether it is an approval or denial, if that is, it was read exactly as it's written, which just says consideration for. So I think you would want to make sure whether it's consideration to approve or to deny the request.
Before we vote, yeah.
Before you would vote, yes.
Okay, absolutely, I understand.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Sorry, I apologize.
No, thank you for that. We wouldn't have known it.
Just the man we're looking for.
Yeah, so just who you
Everybody
are.
hear me okay?
Yeah, please.
I'm here representing the property owners.
Okay,
It's
thank
owned
you.
by property. The property is owned by a private entity, Murraysville Enterprises. It is not owned by the municipality.
Can you state your name for the record?
My name is Ron Weaver.
Okay.
The hour is late, so I'll keep my points succinct.
Thank you.
As we all know, the property is currently noted as public lands. I will draw council to the definition of the zoning of the municipality. Public lands specifically is intended to protect publicly owned land where preservation of the land and where land uses are designated to benefit the public interest. Schools, parks, and conservation areas owned and operated by the governmental entity shall be identified as mapped as public lands. This property is not owned by the municipality, it's privately owned. This property should not exist in its current state. The question that I have is, there are two basic property rights under the Commonwealth, the right to sell and the right to exclude. Under the current zoning, my understanding is the property owner has neither of those two rights. Because it is public lands, we are not permitted to exclude. Also, because it is privately owned public lands, we do not have the right to sell. Is that correct?
I believe you would have the right to sell this land. I just am not sure what the current marketability of it would be with the zoning designation that's attached to it.
Correct. So the zoning is affecting the value of the property privately owned by a business.
Perhaps.
So how does Murraysville define green space as such? And as a private entity that owns this land, what are we as the owners permitted to do on this property? And with this property, do we have the right to let it return to natural succession? We have the right to clear it. Do we have the right to put up a baseball park? As we all know, the covenants expired in January of 2020, which had previously prohibited that. So this is what we call a legal quagmire, I believe, as well as property use. Also, as a private property owner who has land designated as public lands, let's talk about liability. The municipality owns public lands that I'm sure are included within your insurance policies or liability insurance. Where does that stand with the property owner? Would the property owner then be covered under that umbrella because it's designated as public lands? There's a lot of points to consider.
Sir, have you been maintaining this land?
We have not been maintaining the land. No.
What is the condition of it currently?
It is currently, I believe, being mowed by a neighbor, and we only recently found out that this property had the current zoning issue as we're trying to settle and close out an estate and a business, and discovered that it was zoned this way. I believe it was Jim Kress who was the individual who had presented in front of council. Unfortunately, he is deceased. So he cannot provide any guidance as to the commentary that was made, other than the notes that we all have access to.
I was a little surprised that there was not a representative from the property owner, Enterprises, okay? But has there been any dialogue between the property owners and the, what is it, Murraysville, not Murraysville, but I'm searching here for the.
If I may, the property was originally owned by Murraysville Associates, which is also a
Enterprise.
business entity known as Murraysville Enterprises,
Okay.
of which I am here on behalf of.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, I'll say this. I mean, I just don't think it really makes sense to have private property zoned as public use. It just, why? Why would that happen? That's odd, regardless of what was intended or what deed dedication should have occurred. I mean, it is apparently privately owned property, no one disputes that, but it's zoned for something that makes it pretty useless. So, I mean, we have it on our agenda tonight as a rezoning. Is anyone objecting to just rezoning it to R2, which is, again, our medium density? You know, it's not anything crazy like R3, so who would object to rezoning it?
Sorry? No, sir. Taxes were paid by the company that owns the property for the entirety of the ownership. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, not only that, but I mean, if taxes weren't paid, it'd be up to the tax collector to go after it, do a sheriff's sale and handle it. So hearing that from council, it sounds like yeah,
Just
please.
one question. The zoning on either side of that parcel, is that also R2, just to clarify?
Which you're saying on either side of this?
The green space, yeah. The parcels on either side.
He's referring,
B.
Jamie's referring to the two.
The zoning map that was brought up.
Everything that surrounds this is R2.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure. Okay. That it wasn't like an arbitrary.
That second sliver is owned by somebody completely different and is designated as public land as well, right? Or is that owned by us?
No, it's designated as public land.
So both of those are private
Dedicated as green
owners.
space, yes.
So I mean, we do this for that. If they want,
Yeah.
they want it, they're gonna,
Let this guy settle his estate.
yeah, right.
Okay, so any other questions or concerns from council, issues with this? I think we should maybe just vote to see if there is an affirmative will from council to rezone it, and then we'll direct staff and the solicitor to effectuate that. So with that being said, we already had a motion, correct?
I don't think.
It was only the consideration.
Okay.
It wasn't a vote.
Okay, so with that, let's have a motion to approve and take it from there, if someone would like to make
I
it.
think you have to remove that original motion,
No,
don't you?
I would say if it's already up for consideration, you don't make a consideration vote just for the heck of it. So it's currently pending. So let's just do a roll call and you can say yay or nay.
Okay.
And then we'll figure it out. So
Is
for Dave-
yay to rezone?
Yes, so, and we don't need a roll call. So if you're in favor of rezoning, just say yay, and if you don't want to, say nay, and we'll take it from there. So all those in favor of rezoning this parcel to R2, say yay. Yay?
Yay.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so let's do a roll call, Verdale, please.
Mr. Lemak?
Yay.
Mr. Diakopoulos?
Yay.
Mr. Dice?
Yay.
Mr. Stepanovich?
Nay.
Mr. McKenna?
Yay.
Mrs. Ling?
Yay.
Okay, the motion passes, so we will rezone the parcel to R2. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for consideration.
Yep. And wonderful. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to another item that I'll again say is only up for consideration. So to everyone hearing this, again, we're just considering it. So can I have a motion to consider 14B?
Motion to consider SP-1-25 and S-2-25 Summerhill Phase 2 subdivision, Goldie Lane, a simultaneous preliminary and final major land development application and major subdivision application to subdivide one 22.8 acre lot, creating 64 lots, residential development, tax parcel 49-06-00-0-999, R3 high density residential zoning.
Second.
Thank you, Eli and Jamie. Mr. Nestico, do you want to lead us off?
Sure, yes, and I think the developers here, the engineer, could certainly speak to the project. In consultation with staff, there was a comfort level to put this item on the agenda, believing that everything that was in the municipality's purview was in order for consideration to approve. Now, I guess I'll just address the very first item. A time waiver was signed that would allow this item to be approved at the next council meeting on November 18th, Tuesday. So if for any reason this item is not ready for approval this evening, the time waiver does get us to November 18th. Anything beyond that would require an additional time waiver. There were concerns brought about by Mr. Pavlik regarding some of the matters relating to North Duane Drive and the sewage. The maps and the plans that were presented to the municipality address some of the stormwater runoff concerns, taking the stormwater from the property and conveying it across the street and into a ravine area. One of the concerns brought about that we've heard over the last couple months were regarding paving of North Duane Drive. This is a private lane, and as previously discussed with council, there is a concern for the municipality putting forth any sort of recommendation regarding how that paving is to occur. It's a belief that that should be a private agreement between the developer and any potential property owner on the private lane. There's a similar scenario with regard to the abandoned wells that were described somewhere within that property. Again, I believe that would be a private matter between the property owner that may be impacted and the developer. As it relates to sanitary sewage service, it appears that there's an agreement in place executed by the property owner that's nearest to this development, and also additional property owners regarding how that sewage is to be connected to the sanitary system. So again, the drawings and the plans do address the stormwater concerns. They address the sewage. So we're left with a scenario where certainly we can have the developer come forward and attempt to address any concerns we heard during public comment. There does, the one individual mentioned a deed for lot number 22 needs to be recorded. That may be something that could be, again, a condition of approval, but we could probably hear from the developer as to the status of that and some of these other items. So certainly if they would like to speak on the matter, that may clear up any of the confusion that remains with regard to this development.
Okay, yeah, I'd welcome comment from the developer or engineer.
I'll do the easy part, now I'll get the engineer the rest. Okay, I'm Gary Hall, I'm with Summerhill Development. As far as Joanne's comment about the property lines, the piece of property, we're going to extend the rear property and so on, that is still in the works. Ryan Lemke is drafting the deed. We've got everything. The difficulty with recording that is going to be, the subdivision needs to be approved before we can record that deed. Okay, it's a cart and horse thing here. So we can effectively execute it, do everything we can do, and their attorney can hold the deed until at what time we can actually record it. It just can't be recorded. As far as Dennis raised some issue about stormwater on Duane Drive, there is a stormwater plan in place on the plans to handle the water that's coming off the property to take care of Duane Drive. Nevertheless, where it comes down and crosses Duane Drive onto the right-of-way that we've gotten for the stormwater to go back into the stream below that stops approximately 20 to 25 feet short of where there was a 4-inch pipe coming under the road that somebody put in years ago. We have agreed with Dennis, we'll have to add it to the plan, to put in another basin there and bring it back to the point where it goes down over the hill and tie that in. Effectively, what we have should handle most everything, but the agreement with Mr. Wyatt in the beginning was there would be a catch basin there, so there will be. Okay, we will put that on. As far as paving the roads, we have agreed in writing, you guys have a copy of that agreement, to pave Duane Drive from the existing point of where the sewer starts all the way up to the top. We will, private lane, understood, we will pave this road to municipal standards, even though it's not a municipal road.
Okay.
Okay? As far as some other comments that were made this evening about the hillside, the number of units, we've gone through this. We've gone through this over and over and over again. Okay? Unless somebody wants to cut a check for $2.3 million, we want to move forward with our development. Okay, we're at that point. Thanks.
What about the wells? That was the third item.
Jeff Parabeck with Ascent Consulting. We're the engineers for Mr. Hall. Yeah, we actually talked to the Conservation District about any existing wells that may be on the property, and we've added notes to our NPDES permit drawings that any wells that are encountered will be basically abandoned in accordance with DEP criteria.
So they'll be, what is that? Is that capping them? What is that?
DEP criteria requires, and I don't know everything about it, but it'll be capping, basically making sure that there's no means of potential contamination into the aquifer. So there would be some bentonite seals, concrete, things like that, and they would be capped.
Okay, so you said it is on the drawing?
We have added that to the NPDES permit drawings because that's part of the NPDES as we see it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion, comments, questions from council?
No.
Okay.
Oh,
Come ask me.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
part of it.
Well, but just come up so people can hear you. Thank you. Yeah.
Here's the agreement for F. I agree with you, but this is.
Once again, my name's Jan Hunter, okay, and I live at Golding Lane. So this is the first time that I heard, Gary, I'm sorry, after being in contact with our attorneys, that it was the cart before the horse. So I just want to make it clear, we aren't holding this up, but I don't understand that criteria, right? Because that's land that this has to be approved before we have everything done. So I will make sure that I meet with our attorney tomorrow just to clarify that, because I haven't heard that.
Did all the property owners agree to that?
Right.
They did here.
Okay, and we're waiting for the deed to review. Okay, all right. I just wanted to ask because that's the first time I had heard that, and we haven't received the deed yet. Okay.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so my first thought is simply, and Wes, Mike, anything to add?
I would just like to have the opportunity to speak with the developer's engineer and to review the agreements and the consents that I think the adjoining property owners to the unopened portion of North Duane Drive should be required to agree to. If we have the time waiver good through the next meeting, my preference would be to let Michael and I take another final look at this before we proceed. And if there's anything that's out of order, we can approach the developer about another time waiver. If everything looks to be in reasonable order, then we can proceed at the next November meeting.
Yeah, that was my thought as well. I mean, if we have the time waiver to the next meeting, let's just shore up everything so we really feel comfortable with this and take it from there. Yes, sir, please just come to the mic if you'd like to speak. Yeah.
There are consents in place from everybody along the road that explains what's going on and everything, and there's a signed document that these guys have that show that. There was also a question back in the beginning where you had talked to Chuck Ergenroder and went back and forth, and you gave us some verbiage to put on there, a note on the plan as to what the plan should say. That is on the plan.
Yeah, I know that has occurred, Mr. Hall, yeah.
Gary, if I may, while you're at the mic, are you referencing the agreement that was signed, it looks like by quite a few property owners on North Duane, Summerhill Development intent on Duane Drive? Okay, we do have that, and then we also have a separate individual agreement with Mr. Pavlik as well, dated...
Mr. Pavlik representing the group of people on... Oh. He's on, I should say the people, it's him and the two that connect to the sewer. Two that connect to the sewer.
Okay.
Okay. That is what that was about. And the stormwater is part of that agreement as well.
When you say there's an agreement for paving, is that one of the two agreements that I'm referencing here? I mean, I know, just so that I can clear it up and make sure that we're good to go for the next meeting.
That's in the agreement.
It says in here, again, this is the one signed by many of the property owners there on North Duane, with the exception of address 162. It says, repave North Duane from 147 to 242. We'll also tie the road back into all existing hard surface driveways. Is that what you're referencing? Okay. And again, I would just submit to council that that's something that, again, the private property owners would have to agree to, because we don't set the paving standards on a private road for a development like this. So,
Absolutely.
again,
If I may, who was property owner 162 that did not sign?
I don't remember the gentleman's name. He had just bought the property. I dropped off paperwork to him. He was to sign, and I was to pick it up in his mailbox. He got married, went away on, I believe on a honeymoon or something, did he not? Okay. Okay, yeah, I never had a chance to talk with you.
Well, I think everybody has to sign off.
yeah, I'm not, we can look. I'm not sure if 162 is in Allegheny County or Westmoreland. No, you were on here under 201. Is that?
He is in Allegheny County.
I'm sorry, yeah, 201.
He's house number 162.
Yes.
Yeah. Is your,
What's your name, sir?
okay. Is there Ken
Smythe.
Lice? Okay, well, we can check on this.
These are the things I think, Mr. Dice, we have to run down to be sure.
I'll verify the addresses.
Okay.
One more person wants to speak.
Well, so at this point, we have to, I think, just table this thing. So any final questions or concerns from council?
No.
And then oh yeah, Mike.
And again, I don't want to complicate it any further. I think that makes sense. But again, coming back in 2 weeks, because again, staff has kind of flushed through a lot of this. Staff, isn't going to reach out to property owners and ensure that they have an agreement in place privately between the developer and them. So I think, again, that's where we're caught in that gray area. If we come back in 2 weeks and we don't have...
Well, and I want to say as well, we need to be clear with the property owners. We're going to take 2 more weeks to investigate some things. Wes, there are a few things you wanted to check. But to the extent there's private agreements that were privately discussed between property owner and developer, that isn't something that we're a part of. I agree. So that's just something we have to be clear about. However, to the extent that there's just actual legal questions about deeds and dedications and HOAs and all that, let's just do our due diligence, take a couple weeks. And I think we'll be more well prepared to even discuss, wait a minute, this is absolutely a private property matter, and hold on, these are some things we need to make sure we're on top of. So,
That's right.
yeah. Okay. And I would just say any further comments, please just direct them to Mr. Nestico. He's easy to get a hold of. So at this point, council, final questions or concerns? Okay, can I have a motion? Yeah, I know.
She's asking.
Yeah, motion to table, please.
Yep. Second.
So let's do Jamie and Mac. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, it has been tabled. We will discuss that November 18th. That brings us to 15A. Can I have a motion?
Motion to award the contract to Variety Landscapes in the amount of $44,000 for the cleaning and maintenance of the Fair Oaks Basin and the Forge Ridge Basin.
Second.
Thank you, Jamie and Eli. Mr. Nestico?
Just to provide a little bit of background, the Fair Oaks Basin is going to be a full clean-out, repairing of the end walls. The Forest Ridge Basin is a partial clean-out, clearing and sealing the outlet structures. Usually, each pond is around $30,000. That's typically kind of the standard rate. The full clean-out on the Fair Oaks Basin is a little bit on the higher end, the Forest Ridge a little bit less, but we did get a pretty good rate for this project at $44,000. So staff recommends approval.
Okay, questions or concerns from council?
No.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it is awarded. Any old or new business this evening? Okay, no executive session, no action items. Can I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Jamie and Eli. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.